What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Board Games Are For Everybody, where today we're going to be taking a look at Royal Visit by Yellow. This is a game for 2 players that takes about 20 minutes to play, depending on how strategic you are, I guess, where players are trying to impress the king and gain their favor by getting them to come to their chateau. Now, this is a very, very simple 2-player game, very easy to learn. However, the strategy that goes into the game can actually be quite interesting, can be quite competitive when it comes down to it. So first things first, we have our playmat here where players are going to be playing the game. That's a really bad explanation. Obviously, it is where people are playing the game. So first things first, you're going to want to take your token here. You're going to want to set it down right here in the middle. This is your prestige, basically. You can use this to win the game along with the king, who is placed in the middle here. You can win the game by either getting the prestige token or the king token into your player's respective chateau, depending on which player is which. Now, we also have our 2 knights back here, who are the king's guards, basically, and they both come on these spaces right here with our knight symbols. And last but not least, we have our 2 character players. Now, according to the instructions, what you're supposed to do is one player is supposed to take the 2 pieces and they're going to hold them in their hands, and the opponent is going to say either left or right. Say they chose left, which is the jester. So that player is going to play as the jester, and the person who is holding them is going to be playing as the wizard. So depending on which side the players are sitting at, they're going to place their characters on the respective space on their side. So this is going to be the red side, which is controlled by the wizard, and this blue side is going to be controlled by the jester. Now, next you're just going to want to shuffle up the cards here. And each player is going to get 8 cards to start. 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So each player has 8 cards, and the rest of the cards are just put aside as a deck. So on a player's turn, let's say that the wizard is the starting player, and this is going to be our wizard deck. Players have a handful of actions that they can perform. They can use any of the cards in their hand in order to move a certain character of that corresponding card. So, say we have the Joker here and we want to move the Joker. We can move the Joker, the corresponding numbers in the top of the card. We also have cards that allow us to move the knights. So this one says 1+1. However, there are also ones that are just a single one, and another one that has a 1 plus a crown plus a 1. So when you get a card with a 1+1, what you can do is you can either move the knight 2 spaces in any direction, or you can move each knight 1 space in any direction. Now, obviously, the other one you can get is the 1, which just allows you to move the knight in 1 direction, 1 space. And there is another one, like I said before, that has a 1, a crown, and a 1. This allows you to move the knights to both sides of the king. This can be strategic if the king is on a farther side down the way. Now, the next set of cards we have are the king cards. As you can see here, the king allows you to move 1 space in any direction, or if you play 2 of the king cards down, you can move both the king and the knights 1 space in the same direction. So say you played 2 king cards down and you wanted to move everyone to the left, they would all move 1 space to the right, sorry, the right, the other left, the other left. And last but not least, we do not have any in our hand here, but like the Joker, you can also get wizard cards that allow you to move the wizard. So that is playing cards as an action. While you're playing cards, you can play as many cards of the same card type as you want to. So say I wanted to play all 4 of these Joker cards for whatever reason, I could do that in order to move the Joker 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 spaces. However, if you can't complete a movement action, you can't do that movement. So you have to be able to place all, you have to be able to move that piece every space in order to be able to play those cards. So that is playing cards on your turn. The other thing you can do is you can draw cards back up to a hand of 8, but that takes up your entire action, is refreshing your hand back up to 8. 8 is the maximum amount of cards you can have. So as you play cards, eventually you will have to draw cards to refresh your hand. The other thing you can do is that you can choose to use one of your character's powers. Now, both characters have a different power. The wizard's power allows you to move the king from wherever he is on the board to the space that the wizard is on. This can be very helpful when trying to get the king towards your chateau. However, if the wizard were in the chateau space, you cannot use the power. You aren't allowed to use the power in order to move the king into your chateau. The closest you'd be able to do it is 1 space before your chateau. The final option you have on your turn is to move the prestige tracker at the back of the track here. And the way that that works is that when you choose to move the prestige option, the prestige marker, sorry, you gain 1 point for each character inside your chateau area, which is these 2 spaces on both sides of the board. So let's say the wizard had 3 characters inside of his chateau and he decided to move the token. He would gain 1, 2, 3 spaces towards his chateau on the movement track. Now, getting the prestige marker into your chateau is one of the ways to win the game. So that's something you want to try and mix with trying to move the king. Because if a player is focused on moving the king, you could always come back and win the game by moving the prestige marker. Now, the other way to score points via the prestige marker is if the entire court is in your side of the board. So past this point right here, past the middle point, each character has their own section of the board. And the court consists of the king and the 2 knights. So if all of them are on your side of the board, then you get 1 point. So you could say you want to use the prestige marker and move up 1 point on the track. Now, let's say you have a character inside of your chateau and you also have the court in your side. You can combine those 2 things when you choose to use the prestige marker. So you would get 1 point for the wizard being in his chateau, and you would also gain 1 point for having the entire court on your side of the board. Now, because I forgot to do it, we're going to back up a little bit. The jester has a bit of a different power. The wizard, like I said, has the power of moving the king to whatever spot he is on. However, the jester, his power only works if he is between the king and his chateau. So let's say the king is over here for whatever reason. Let's say the jester's over here. Because the jester is between his chateau space and the king, he is now allowed to use any jester cards he has as a wild card to move any of the characters. So let's say that he wants to start moving the king towards him, but he only has one king card in his hand. Now, that's not particularly helpful, as you'd only be able to move the king one space forward. But by activating his power, he could play all of these Jester cards in order to move the king towards his side. So we have 6, 7, 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. However, we wouldn't actually be able to do that because once the king hits the space that the Jester is on, that power is no longer available since the king is no longer farther away from the Jester and the court because, like we said, the Jester has to be in between his chateau and the king in order for the ability to go off. So he probably wouldn't be able to play that too. Like we said before, you can't play cards if you can't complete the action. So even moving 6, you would be able to move the king forward like that. And that's pretty much all the movement rules for the game. That is everything you can do on a turn. So from this point, you're really just going back and forth trying to get either the prestige or the king into your court. So let's say the first thing, the wizard here doesn't have a whole lot of stuff. However, he does have a bunch of Jester cards. So what we could do is we could try and stop the Jester from using his powers. So let's say we put 4 and 3, which is a total of 7. That would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And we could also throw down our 2 for good measure to get him into the back of our chateau. And that would be our turn, since we can't use the 1 unless we were to move him back this way, but there's no point in doing that. And you aren't allowed to play multiple character cards during one turn. You're only allowed to play multiples of the same character card. So that would end our turn. So we would now go on to the Jester's turn. So because we are on the far side and we are not between our chateau and the king, we can't use our power as the Jester. However, what we could do is we could start trying to move everybody into our side of the court. So what we could do is we could play these 2 guard cards as well as this guard card. So what we can do is we can move 1 guard, 1 space. And now we also have an option to either move 1 guard 4 spaces, or we can move the 2 guards 2 spaces each, or 1 space each, basically. So let's say we want to just go 2 each for these guys. Actually, it's probably better to just move this one 4. So if we went 1, 2, 3, 4, we now have the 2 guards in our side. And all we would need to do is move the king over in order to start moving that prestige point over. So that would be the end of the turn for the Joker. So we now go back and forth between both players, playing cards, trying to kind of outrace our opponents here in order to be the first person to either get our prestige tracker into the other side there, or to get the king into our chateau. And that is more or less how the game is played. And you do this back and forth until one player claims victory. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 claims victory. The other way to claim victory is that once the entire deck has been gone through, so let's say everyone goes through the deck and no one has a hand for some reason, the discard pile gets reshuffled. Each player gets, well, they wouldn't get a new hand, but let's say each people just had a handful of cards left here. So the deck would get reshuffled, and we would take our prestige marker here and flip it to the small side, and that would be now placed. Once the deck is gone through 2 times, the game ends, and whoever has the most prestige points is the player who wins the game. If there's a tie, I believe it moves to whoever has the king in their court, or in their side of the board by the end of the game. And that's pretty much how the game works. It's just a back and forth trying to impress the king enough that he wants to come to your castle and come chill with you. That's basically it for Royal Visit. It's a really fun game. We really enjoyed it quite a bit. It definitely gets you thinking on how to try and outwit your opponent. Like, say the wizard was way over here and he decided to use his power. All of a sudden, the king is one space away from the wizard winning the game. So our jester is now going to have to try and play some cards in order to get the king back on his side. Like, he could play this 5 as his wild card and move the king 5 spaces. Stuff like that you really have to try and think about and kind of keep on your toes when it comes to outsmarting your opponents and getting the king into your chateau. But that is pretty much it for Royal Visit. It's a really fun card game, strategy game, trying to outwit your opponent. I'm just saying the same thing over and over again. Outwit your opponent, play cards, blah, blah, blah. You get it. But yeah, really fun game. We really enjoyed it. And that is really all I have to say about it. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys have played Royal Visit, let me know what you think of it down below. If seeing this video has made you want to try out the game, also let me know that down below. It's always interesting to see what kind of games people end up playing because of the stuff we've talked about. And that's pretty much it. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Hopefully I will see you all next time. But until then, just remember, board games are for everybody. Hopefully I'll see you all then. Peace.